the abstraction. Or more at least for the small.
Justification is just what the ideals call
the
for.
abstraction.
Afraid but vulnerable, placed in time for you could be sensitive.
The abstraction.
Recited. There was also the
the abstraction.
jealousy and animosity between the supernatural deities that was an actual form of humans. To accomplish you for the giving of the winter, for the seasons, for the sun, for the moon, for everything that was inhaled together, for the unfortunate, for those who find a reaction to earth was requested. The blue flower that died, and later invisible for the thorn
the
that grew, for
abstraction.
the resident of a physician, or transforming yourself inevitable protoplasm who continue with the
the
remorse
abstraction.
kind of attacking, contracting parts of the fish, either for the mythical darkness of the book follow the stories of the luminescent mantle for the kerosene lamp that plied
the abstraction.
or me the stars who cool down for the arranging in place, the peace, the quiet, to find the glow. You know that song for the words will never find your brain patterns and become an abstraction of a thought for the greatest gift. You've never seen those
the
waves ever
abstraction.
so driftly,
Or more at least for the small light plump.
to and from.
The
It's almost
abstraction.
like daylight. I said to be the firefly that illuminated myself for the last time in the lighthouse.
The abstraction.
Flowers and turned out there were no milkweeds on the shore for the winter passing by. You only have to stand the test of time.
The abstraction. Or more at least for the small light plump, for the black, with the leather, for the bonding, and the traveling of the reflections. Cosmogony, finding a seeding of a woman and selfish and inducting for the breaking of a shape. Even who knows for the elevated who for the overseeing of what daylight brings.
Justification is just what the ideals call for.
The abstraction. Or more at least for the small light plump, for the black, with the leather, for the bonding, and the traveling of the reflections. Cosmogony, finding a seeding of a woman and selfish and inducting for the breaking of a shape. Even who knows for the elevated who for the overseeing of what daylight brings every day.
The hinterland of abstraction carrying us.
The abstraction. Or more at least for the small light plump, with the black, with the leather, for the bonding, and the traveling of the reflections.
Find that ecstasy
finding a
beauty.
seeding of a woman and selfish and inducting for the breaking of a shape.
Find that ecstasy.
At a lady for the overseeing of what daylight brings every day, for the focusing of it.
Find that ecstasy beauty.
With the details in the coke glittering with the drops of luminescent water. To your grandfather, or maybe the narrating of the sculpture with agreed after. Handful of the soil for the deep, for the singular ocean that became the beneath the feet for the sword for to doctrine. You're listening and behavior, you're not to hear listening. We're lifting a black nose to the sky for the ample of a pond. Ed stopped the posing before the picture was snapped behind you, sculpting a small shaped skeleton of a lodge. For the embedding of the ground, for wholly agree for that day, for the averting of the pain and change. And even if it don't see if you were not to happen, creation and you can be, feed the soul for the delivering of your depths. Rather not you make for the hereafter, the courage of being bros, for the ways of the wise, of the dove, and get unflinching, the gut retrieving of the earth, and obliviously as could be the presence. Sliding to the pond like he's swimming in the middle for the escape. The affecting of the waves and the wind behind him, and the dissipating of the blue sky, the sitting of clouds, and the indicating the sacrifice we learn floating in lifeless to the surface. You'll make a resurrecting of him when with personal contribution could contemplate it as itself. Daughter for the son, for the dead, for the who did the sacrifice, to define specifically what youth would find your children. As an example that must be done to nectify the nectar, or to rectify the misdirection to only your will for the language of religion, or your history from the thrive of the ideology, and maybe the approach bound for the home for the briefly. Looking for the reaching of the waves for the shoreline, diving into the dark for the green ponds and equipment to find the sculpture hand for the secret of the tobacco or cigarette for the delicately find the water for the architectural tranquility.
Find that ecstasy beauty. Find that ecstasy beauty. Find that ecstasy beauty. hint of the abstraction, and more the leaves for the small eye pump with the black with the leather for the vine, get the trampling of the reflections. Cosmogony, finding a seeding of her own and selfish, and inducting for the breaking of the shaping of, and who knows for the edilated and for the overseeing for what delight brings every day for the focusing of a telepathic lens, for the details in the coke leathery with the drops of luminescent water, to your grandfather or maybe the narrating of the scourge with the greed after. Handful of the soil for the deep for the singular ocean that became the beneath the feet for the sword for unto doctrine your listening and behavior for not to hear listening or lifting a black nose to the sky for the ample of a pond. Ed stopped the pose before the picture was snapped behind you, sculpting a small shaped skeleton of a lodge. For the embedding of the ground for holy agree for that day for the unverting of the pain and change, and even if it don't see if you were not to happen, creation and you can be free the soul for the delivering of the your depths. Rather not do you make for the hereafter the courage of being embroiled for the ways of the wise of the dove and get unflinching the good retrieving of the earth and obliviously as could be the presence, sliding to the pond like it's swimming in the middle for the escape, the affecting of the waves and the wind behind him and the dissipating of the blue sky, the sitting of clouds and the indicating the sacrifice we learn floating and lifeless to the surface. You'll make a resurrecting of him when with personal contribution you're contemplated as
A hint of the abstraction.
a hint of the abstraction. Or more the leaves for the small eye plump with the black with the leather for the vine, get the trampling of the reflections. Cosmogony, finding a seeding of her own and selfish, and inducting for the breaking of the shaping of, and who knows for the edilated and for the overseeing for what delight brings every day for the focusing of a telepathic lens, for the details in the coke leathery with the drops of luminescent water, to your grandfather or maybe the narrating of the scourge with the greed after. Handful of the soil for the deep for the singular ocean that became the beneath the feet for the sword for unto doctrine your listening and behavior for not to hear listening or lifting a black nose to the sky for the ample of a pond. Ed stopped the pose before the picture was snapped behind you, sculpting a small shaped skeleton of a lodge. For the embedding of the ground for holy agree for that day for the unverting of the pain and change, and even if it don't see if you were not to happen, creation and you can be free the soul for the delivering of the your depths. Rather not do you make for the hereafter the courage of being embroiled for the ways of the wise of the dove and get unflinching the good retrieving of the earth and obliviously as could be the presence, sliding to the pond like it's swimming in the middle for the escape, affecting of the waves and the wind behind him and the dissipating of the blue sky, the sitting of clouds and the indicating the sacrifice we learn floating and lifeless to the surface. You'll make a resurrecting of him when with personal contribution could contemplate it as itself. Daughter for the son, for the dead, for the who did the sacrifice and define specifically what you confine your children. As an example that must be done to nectify the nectar, or to rectify the misdirection to only your will for the language of religion, or your history of thrive of the ideology and maybe the approach the bound for the home for the briefly, looking for the reaching of the waves for the sure line.
Find that ecstasy beautiful. When you find that ecstasy beautiful.
When you find that ecstasy beautiful.
Justification is just what the ideals call for, unafraid but vulnerable, placed in time for you could be sensitive signal, recited. There was also the disagreement for the jealousy and animosity between the supernatural deities that was an actual form of humans. To encompass you for the giving of the winter, for the seasons, for the sun, for the moon, for everything that was held together, for the unfortunate, for those who could find a reaction to the earth, it was requested. The blue flower that died, and later invisible for the thorn to be rude, for the resident of a physician, or transferring of some inevitable protoplasm, and continue with the more sensitive kind of attacking and contracting parts of the fish and the eater with the mythical darkness of the book follow the stories in the luminescent mantle for the kerosene lamp and apply the plank or meet the stars who cool down for the arranging of the place, the peace, the quiet, to find the glow. You know that song for the words would never find your brain patterns and become an abstraction of a thought for the greatest gift. You never seen those waves ever so driftly, moving to and from. It's almost like daylight. I said to be the firefly, illuminating myself for the last time, the lighthouse. It's good to smell these flowers, and turned out there were no milkweeds on the shore for the winter passing by. You only have to stand the test of time. I'm gonna say it was breathless. Maybe every move that you had every day. The moment of space and time when the ecstasy is beautiful enough. You'll find a game for the calming of the transportation soon end. Chant, who knows the flight? Who ends the beginning for the rest? Who has the heart for the bestilling of the money? Or the memory for the rested, for the time for the moon is right for the escape? The color of the lower sky for the broadly suffused with the wind in my tie. I know, amazingly, how often one takes to the madness into their own hands and keeps it. You rose from behind. On the Satan, on the secrets, of the solid and with the escort, with the reason to find yourself at the rising, of what you become. More for the find of the great calming of what you can find gay, transporting yourself to the end and you can still rest. Suffering in the moon, in the shadow, in the lusting stars, in acquisition. Find yourself a poet, or at work and advising myself to sit down for no layoffs is to find yourself condemned. Everything you stand for the great, find the bar on the windows, for the glowing of contemplation, for the road works, for the print, you only find it right. Down, link them on for the folk and the poetry, songs and dread for the everything else. And Mary carry the bundles of holding your feet for the listen, never being anywhere, but you can know the favor of the drag for the oil protection, the hurt, the rehashing of the song, for the higher growing up of the corrupt, the vitality of the woman who had to hold the job, for the cooking of the raising of the children, the bow for the go to church. Maybe you can find yourself knowing for the sitting of the months in the lines of the Pope, or where not you divine the sultry, or it's a seduction. Or that great place for the contemplation. You know where you stand, here from the midst of time like a tree. For the finding of you saw yourself down, for the attending of the older friend of the sun. You know, that place where you could browse your name, with the artillery give vein for the finding some subtleness in which you can contain. The peace, the movement, or whatever you can call yourself with it improved. Rather or not, you can find that blue vase and teach yourself, and I can be the bad ship for the velvet tight for drawings and curtains because you knew the wave. Stirred it inside like emotions. Drink it when you were sick enough for the ocean. Oh well, who contains those thoughts? Just the blackness held in space, here throughout the everlasting. You and I be everlasting. After the karma, you could be a tree walking, talking the breath of life, or you can find yourself brushed with the blue roses in the vase, or can place
or replace. Skating through the multiplying of the mass and defining bathing gaze and finding astonishment for the hectic night for the compasses has not let you further go. The moment of space and time when the ecstasy's beautiful enough. You'll find a game for the calming of the transportation soon end. Chant, who knows the flight? Who ends the beginning for the rest? Who has the heart for the bestilling of the money? Or the memory for the rested for the time for the moon is right for the escape? The color of the lower sky for the broadly suffused with the wind in my tie. I know, amazingly, how often one takes to the madness into their own hands and keeps it. You rose from behind.
Your favorite color is winding down. Maybe the sound was the darling of the wine, finding the favorite color for the giving of the flower, the paper cut. You can never leave me for the finding a tuxedo to crawl on. Strive for the eyebrows to brush the hair, or the eyebrows to raise, and maybe the table to introduce yourself. Subtly. Your favorite color is winding down.
Your favorite color is
Your favorite color is winding down. Your favorite color is winding down. Your favorite color is winding down. Maybe the sound was the darling of the wine, finding the favorite color for the giving of the flower, the paper cut. You can never leave me for the finding a tuxedo to crawl on. Strive for the eyebrows to brush the hair, or the eyebrows to raise, and maybe the table to introduce yourself. Subtly. Your favorite color is winding down. Maybe the sound was the darling of the wine, finding the favorite color for the giving of the flower, the paper cut. You can never leave me for the finding a tuxedo to crawl on. Strive for the eyebrows to brush the hair, or the eyebrows to raise, and maybe the table to introduce yourself. Subtly. Your favorite color is winding down. Maybe the sound was the darling of the wine, finding the favorite color for the giving of the flower, the paper cut. You can never leave me for the finding a tuxedo to crawl on. Strive for the eyebrows to brush the hair, or the eyebrows to raise, and maybe the table to introduce yourself. Subtly. Your favorite color is winding down. Maybe the sound was the darling of the wine, finding the favorite color for the giving of the flower, the paper